The Bills season comes to an end in Kansas City. How Sean McDermott let his team down. And what about Cole Beasley? All that's coming up on this week's edition of the Buffalo Plus podcast.
All right, welcome back to the Buffalo Plus podcast presented by BuffaloPlus.com. Mike Catalana, Dan Fetes. I am Jenna Cottrell. Mike, you're back from Kansas City. Wasn't the ending a lot of Bills fans hoping for, of course, but we got to talk about this game because the Bills coming so far, their first AFC championship since 1994, and a tough way to go out against the reigning champs.
Yeah. All right, let's start with this right off the top. Bills had a great season. Tremendous progress. They are one of the best teams in the NFL. They should be proud of what happened. Now we're going to talk about what happened in the game on Sunday night. I wrote this. It's on Buffalo Plus. Sean McDermott let his team down. And the reason I say that is that guy has done more for this franchise in the last 4 years than anybody else did in the 17 years before that. Okay. He turned this whole thing around. He is a great coach who had a great season. I think he had a bad night. And the reason I think he had a bad night was he didn't show enough faith in Josh Allen and the offense. The Josh Allen offense carried this team this year. Yes, the defense was great in the last game, but they weren't great Sunday night. And when he had a chance to put the ball in the hands of his quarterback at the end of the half and in the third quarter, he chose instead to play conservatively. And you cannot beat the Chiefs that way, not when they were playing the way they were. And I think when he looks at it, he'll regret it. He should have regretted it last night. He should have changed what he did. And that doesn't mean I think they win the game if they go for it on fourth down.
Yeah.
But they show Kansas City they're there to win, not to stay close. And when I mean, stay close and hope Kansas City makes a mistake or you got to stop. But Dan, they didn't do any of that. And they looked like they were playing conservatively and passively is the wrong word, but not like we're good enough and we're going up against you.
Right. It wasn't the Ravens game where it felt like 3 points was going to be 30 points. This was a game that we all kind of said, like, these teams are going to go back and forth and this is going to be that shootout. And I said it last night, every 3 points, every field goal that they settled for was like losing 4. Like it was -4. And Sean talked about that it would have been deflating not to get points before the end of the half. I just disagree with it. I just think that going in there was so half-heartedly. Yeah. And it just, like I said, they come out on the opening drive, Jenna, and they go for it on 4th and 1 from the 48, which would have been a huge turn of events.
Yeah.
Which would have been a huge turn of events that would have been the Chiefs getting the ball at midfield on the opening drive and the Bills going to be empty. And they went aggressive and they went to a play that had worked over and over again, a little RPO and then a little shovel pass to Dawson Knox. Mm-hmm. And then after that, it just really felt like they turtled. It really felt like this was a team that the game was too big. And I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that, the Bills can't play in a big game. No, they've played in big games. An AFC championship game is different. It just is. They have played on Monday night. They've played on Sunday night. They have played playoff games. That's all great, and those are all steps. It's a different level to play in the AFC championship game, Jenna, and that's what we saw last night.
And I think when you saw the Chiefs' confidence, and even there was a clip, I don't know if you guys saw, of Mahomes mic'd up. He went over to Hardman and said, "We know, we got this. We've been here." And I think you saw like there wasn't that panic when the Chiefs really didn't get out to that great start. There was a drop on third down, obviously the muff punt, the Bills scored. But for them to keep their composure because they've been in that moment before, they've dealt with those nerves. And the Bills, a lot of these guys haven't. And Josh Allen, one of those guys in particular. And I think the word I was looking for yesterday was when McDermott didn't go for it on fourth down and decided to settle for field goals. In my eyes, that reinforced the fact that he was not confident in Josh's play. And then I felt like that was the butterfly effect of saying, I don't trust you to get these points. I don't trust the offense. And because of that, you saw things kind of go from, okay, the Bills have this, to things starting to fall apart. And it was in that decision-making and going conservative. And we can slice this up anyway to Sunday. You're not going to win games when you kick field goals against the Chiefs, but to take the ball out of your quarterback's hands, who for the back half of the season has been playing like an MVP, that was a move that was infuriating to watch.
It's a move that if you made with the 2019 Bills, might have been the right move.
Yes,
right? Because
completely.
that team scored 20 points a game. That team's quarterback, as I've been saying, was a question mark, not an exclamation point. That team didn't come through in the clutch moments. I mean, it did on occasion, but this team is really good. And it's Josh Allen, and you're going against Mahomes. And I think what it did, to Dan's point too, yes, you got the 3 points, you lost the 4. Look, if it was different and the defense was playing better and Kansas City wasn't lethal like they were Sunday night, then I think you say, okay, you got the 3 before half. You stop Kansas City, you get it back, they go down, and maybe they take another 3, right? Or if the circumstances were different, if you were at the 36-yard line and it was 4th and 7, and you go for the field goal, you go, we're going to steal 3 points here. But you were
that wasn't the situation.
No, you were 4th and goal at the 2, and you were 4th and 3 at the 8, and Kansas City had just wiped away your field goal before the half to start the second half. They did it rather easily. Fortunately, Jordan Poyer made a big play, and it looked like, okay, they kicked the field goal. Then you go down the field and you kick it again. And what did Sean McDermott have all year was faith in his quarterback. And then he got into this game and he held short. And I think Sean McDermott's a smart coach and a smart guy. And I think he self-scouts. Yeah. And I don't know what he's going to say when we talk to him on Tuesday. And maybe he won't give away his real thinking on things. But I know when he reviews that, he's going to say, I got to be more aggressive. I really believe he will learn from that.
I hope he can admit, though, that he would have gone about it differently now. Because I feel like if he were to, kind of settle in and be like, no, like I think I made the right decision, I would have more question marks about that than if he were to be like, you know what? Now I know.
Yeah. And can I add one other thing? Dan, I saw our buddy, the guy who copied your idea of wearing the hoodie and the jacket, Dan Orlovsky, who I love doing it. I think it was Mina Kimes from ESPN who had said, not a joke, but a comment like whispers, the field goals by McDermott were worse than the ones by Matt LaFleur. I don't agree with that.
I do.
Well, here's why I don't agree with it. Sean McDermott didn't show the faith in his team, but his team still had 2+ quarters and he got points. And it wasn't like you only had one chance. Like if they would have gotten a pick, they would have made a play. You're right back in the game. And the field goal would have been a good 3 points. The decision Matt LaFleur made left no margin of error. You have Aaron Rodgers and you left yourself in so many ways that was more egregious because that was your chance. And if you don't get it, you still would likely get another chance.
Okay, a couple points off that. The reason I disagree with that, Mike, is because it was earlier in the game, it had more time to affect that outcome. Like people say, and they'll look at the end of this game and they go, well, the Bills didn't lose because of 2 field goals. Like they lost because of this or they lost because of that. You don't know what could have happened if the Bills scored a touchdown before the half and made it a 5-point game. You kind of opened Pandora's box. And that is what drove me crazy about that decision before halftime and the decision out of the second half after the Chiefs punt. Dan Orlovsky pointed it out last night too. The Bills had where they really couldn't get anything going. They went 3 and out, and then they had that long drive, and then they settled for the field goal. And then they have another long drive and settled for another field goal. They had 14 plays, went 140 yards, and came away with 6 points. Like that is that feels like a loss. Like it just does. And it's a glass half empty approach. And they played back on their heels and they played with more brake than gas. As I joked around about, that this was a team and an offense that could dictate pressure and could dictate opposing defenses. And they didn't. And what drove me nuts is that so many people break down this play and they break down these field goals, these decisions that McDermott made, and they go, well, if you get it, if you take the field goal, you're in this situation. And if you don't make it, you're in this situation. Like if by going for it, you also have a chance of scoring a touchdown or drawing a flag or doing other things. Like there's so many other variables than just going, if you don't go for it, this is what happens.
But Dan, you're right. You are right.
I know.
I think they're two different examples. One is about points, very specific circumstances to the game. The Green Bay mistake, egregious by the head coach. Because even if you fail, there's the benefit of your keeping that team inside the 10-yard line with a chance to get it back and still with a chance to score. Or if you score and you don't get the 2, you still could win the game with a field goal if you get a stop. In this case with McDermott, it was more about the feel of the game, the attitude towards your team, because right before the half, Kansas City's not, you're not getting an advantage of
no, I see
hitting
what
them
you mean.
deep. So yes, you could argue that in the bigger picture of the game, what McDermott did was more costly.
It was possum.
It is. But at the end of the game, again, you have no chance to come back from that. So that's why I looked at that and said, look, if Sean McDermott's defense would have stepped up, even at the end, even after the second one, it's only 24-15. Like, it's still a game.
Yeah.
And if they made a play defensively, you're right back in it and you'll be happy with those 6 points. Like, you did score the 6 points. And you still would have had, Jenna, 15 to 22 minutes of game time to play. Yeah. My thought was, if you're just watching that game, take a step back. Your defense can't stop Mahomes and your offense needs something. And that's what surprised me more about Sean. And I would have rather seen them go and fail and get blown out 38-13 than to comically sort of come back, and it never really happened.
And Jenna, we saw the Colts do it, right? Like, I respected Frank Reich going for it on 4th and goal and saying, hey, you know what? If the Chiefs or if the Bills are going to march 97 yards down the field, then you tip your cap and say that wasn't our day. But they didn't, and they played scared. Like, it's okay to say that, like, Jenna, they won big games, but the lights were a little bit too bright on yesterday night.
Yeah. I think that's a complete way to sum it up. Was you saw the turtling, the possuming of both the offense, the defense was outmatched, and then the decision-making by the head coach, coordinators. It was a team that we have gotten to know the identity of so well this season, and it was everything that we're not used to. It was the exact opposite of what we've seen from the team. And I think that's why it was so frustrating, is just because I was saying this earlier. I think the biggest thing that was upsetting about that game is that this Bills team is good. Like, they have played very well this season. And for them to put that game up against the Chiefs in the AFC Championship, a lot of people are doubting the success from the outside of this team and saying maybe this team really wasn't for real. All of these things. They have so many question marks. Now, we know, and Bills fans know, that this is a team that has taken tremendous steps forward this season, but it definitely leaves other people with the takeaway of, wow, that's not the Buffalo team that I had heard about.
Yes.
It's just frustrating to see that.
Is that a Nick Wright sub comment? No. Is that a sub tweet towards Nick Wright?
Honestly, it wasn't, but it absolutely applies to him.
Look, Nick Wright, in this way, it proved Nick Wright right. And I don't think he is right. Correct. And it's funny. Yeah. He obviously, he's good at what he does. He spins the narrative into what he wants. I didn't say Josh Allen's better than Patrick Mahomes. The Bills were playing better than the Chiefs up to that point, but what had we been talking about? But the Chiefs are the champs. They've done it in the playoffs. The Bills have to prove it. They have to go on the road. But Jenna's right. The game that played out, if you hadn't been paying a lot of attention to the Bills, you're sitting at your TV, you're going, all right, let me see what this Bills team's all about. And then you watched them and you're like, really? This is the team you guys have been talking about? That's what frustrated me watching it. It was a lost opportunity to put the pedal down. Now, Sean McDermott will learn, because his mentor on the other side lost his first 3 NFC championship games. In fact, lost 4 out of 5 in Philly, and then lost his first one in Kansas City. Now, we hope for you Bills fans, you don't have to go through 5 losses in this game. Yeah. But Andy made mistakes, and they lost in championship games. Mm-hmm. And he had Donovan McNabb, who was a really good player at the time, and he lost. And then he lost with Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So it's no great thing to lose, but the way they lost was, we know they're better than the way they played.
Yeah.
So the guys were talking about it today in some post-game Zooms, and I asked Cole Beasley, because Mike, you and I were in that Houston locker room after that loss in the wild card round, and it literally was shock. I think you asked Micah Hyde, like, are you guys stunned? Like what took place? And he was like, yeah, I can't believe what happened. And I asked Cole Beasley, like, what was the difference? And he kind of joked around. He's like, I don't even remember the Houston locker room anymore. He goes, but I remember in Houston, like, we shot ourselves in the foot. Like, we gave Houston the game. And he goes, we didn't play well, yesterday, and Kansas City was the better team. And I appreciate that the Bills had the honesty, but it just brought back bad memories of Rex Ryan whenever they would lose a game and Rex would go, I'll take the blame. I got out coached and like they were the better team. And it's like enough about that. Like it almost like it was like they didn't play like themselves, Jenna. And again, that's where we're talking around in circles. We got to turn the page to try and go the positives of the season. But it was just one of those moments where it just felt like you just turtled.
I will say we talked to Josh Allen on Monday, and he was saying he was excited to learn from the pain of this game. He was excited.
But he added he was sick and tired of this, that he doesn't want this to become a thing, because he was asked about like, hey, you learned a lot from Houston. What do you learn a lot from this? And he was like, yeah, I don't want this to constantly be a narrative. Like I'm learning it through losses. Like you can learn through wins too, Jenna.
Yeah, but you're right, Jenna. You're right,
you
Jenna.
also learn, I think, clear examples. Losses make it very cut and dry what you need to get better at.
100%.
But that's why I have the big problem with McDermott, because I want Josh Allen to learn. I'll put it to you this way. He learned in Houston because he was all over the place in that Houston game. The ball was in his hands, or it was on the ground, or he was pitching it to Dawson Knox. Like it was all the Josh Allen experience. But in this case, you took it out of his hands.
Yeah.
You threw Tyler Bass out there to kick a field goal. Like, I just don't think that's Sean McDermott when he first became a head coach and when he didn't have an offense. And he watched Andy Reid the week before, and I know the circumstances are different, but with a backup quarterback when he could have run the ball or even punted or done whatever. And no, he runs a pass, gets a first down, seals the game, and says, and then what does Sean say? That's Andy. Okay, it is Andy, but some of that should be you, because that's the NFL in 2021. Yeah. The days, I will go back to a quick story. I went back to watch the highlights of the 89 game in January when they lost to the Bengals. That game is a total blur to me. I wasn't there. It was before I was sports director, so I watched it again. And there was a part, Dan, you'll love this. The Bengals are winning. The game was close. It was like 3 points in the first half. They're at the Bills' 37-yard line, 4th and 3.
They punt.
And not only do they punt, no one even questions it. And the ball's down at like the 14, and the punter's like not high-fiving, but like slapping hands walking off the field. And I'm like, that was the NFL back then. You would punt. It wasn't even a question.
And look at who is playing, and look at the teams that are moving forward. Yes, the Bucs secondary or the Bucs defensive line is really good. They got pressure on Aaron Rodgers. But look at the Rams. Like I saw the Rams have this amazing defense. In today's NFL, Jenna, good offense is beating good defense. It just is. Like it used to be in a time before where you could get by with a mediocre quarterback and an average offense, and you could, run the ball well, stop the run, don't turn the ball over, and play great defense. And it was like, that's not it anymore.
No, it's not. I even think of like the Browns and why they've been so successful or were so successful last season, and it wasn't because of their defense. Like, you're right. It is the passing offense. It is all offense in 2020.
And Dan, you make the point a lot about the good pass rushing teams, and the Chiefs become one in large part because they're winning, and because you have to throw to catch up to them. And even in these they've had some close games, their
I've said
offense
a lot of
puts
smart things this year.
so much pressure on the other team. They unleash those guys. And I felt like, Jenna, that Josh Allen was out trying to score 2 touchdowns on every drive.
Yeah.
He was like, I got to
Completely.
do it. I got no margin of error. Like, I got to score. I got to score. And that gets into his problems when he turns a 6-yard loss into a 26-yard loss.
Yeah.
Like he does do that. But that's when he gets rattled, in part because they're down and they're in trouble. So,
Yeah. All right, let's look at some. Well, actually, let's start with Cole. Let's go to
that's
Cole
what I was
Beasley.
going to say. How about that?
Insane.
Cole Beasley playing on a partially broken leg. Dan,
Yeah.
we were in the press conference when they said that. Like, talk about that was insane.
Yeah,
Mike, wait.
It's only partially broken.
Yeah,
I mean,
Mike,
wait. Hold on.
Oh my god, Mike's
laughed, though.
If you're,
Hey, I'm
if you're
doing this-
listening to this, picture your put up your left hand, and then if your pinky was at a literal 90
45 degree.
angle,
Yeah. But-
yeah.
It's not
No.
Baldinger.
Right. A balding is ridiculous. But no, he's a tough guy. And how funny was it? If you remember when I interviewed him, when we were on the Zoom call, I said, when did you know you were going to play in that Colts game? And he was like, Thursday. And he's like, but really the Sunday before, when I had to sit there and watch. He knew he had a fracture in his leg. He's not supposed to be on the field.
He still said the pain of being on the sidelines was worse.
Yeah.
There was nothing. It's almost hard at times to get shock in these Zoom meetings this year. People have asked us, like, what has it been like, doing our jobs here? Like, it's been totally different. You really don't get these one-on-ones. Like, there are a lot of times when there are media scrums at somebody's locker, and then people kind of disperse to go to other people, and you can kind of keep your camera there, and you can kind of keep talking to the guy, and maybe without 7 cameras around, and it's just you and him, you might get something that, might be like, oh, wow, I can't believe he said that. Jenna and I have gotten that a couple of times, or if you're the first person in the locker room, you might be able to get somebody before they go. When he was asked the question and he said that he feels great, or that he's going to feel great, he's going to have a great offseason, he's going to have his second full offseason. And Mike Girardi of the NFL Network goes like, hey, does that mean like you are nursing your knee or something like that? Are you, it's not going to be a big deal? And he's like, yeah, I broke my fibula. And the best was like the collective Zoom of being like, he said,
You're like this.
I got this messed up.
What happened? Wait a minute. Did I hear that? Did he cut out?
Like, and then for the fact of like, I tweeted out too, like I tweeted out the exchange of when he said it because it was so out of the blue. And it was almost like he was like, do I say this? Yeah, I fractured my fibula. And you're like, what? And then Girardi goes, wait, what? You fractured? And he was like, yeah, it's no big deal. Like, it's partially fractured. Like, it's not completely. And it's like that makes it any better. Right. And the fact of his, he goes, yeah, I couldn't play the one game. He's like, took some meds and sucked it up. Like it was like 1970s football being like, rub some dirt on it and get back out there. Like, it was insane.
Football guy.
Jack Youngblood from the Rams.
Yes.
I think he played in the championship game with a broken leg. I remember that.
Oh,
yeah.
God.
And it's like, you what? And he's
Bobby,
and
the other one I grew up like hockey wise was Bobby Baun was a Maple Leafs defenseman in the Stanley Cup of Game 6. He had blocked a shot from Bobby Orr and had broken his ankle. And they like took him off on the stretcher, like off the ice. And he came back in the third period, played in overtime, played in Game 7. And they later found out that he had fractured his ankle like in half, and he played through it. Byron Leftwich with the broken shin getting carried down the field by his Marshall teammates. That's an all-timer. And then obviously Ronnie Lott having the tip of his finger cut off so he could play.
By the way, Byron Leftwich in the Super Bowl.
Cool.
He's coordinator for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yes.
Yeah.
So is Cole Beasley then on
quarterback.
On the Mount Rushmore? Does he make?
Yeah, Cole Beasley's on the Mount Rushmore of tough guys.
He is so matter of fact about it. In fact, like, yeah, I'm going to play. I will say this about the Bills: their offense went backwards a little bit, certainly in the playoffs. They did not play like they did, but Gabe Davis was hurt in that Baltimore game.
Yeah.
John Brown's been hurt all year.
All year.
Stephon
Zach
Diggs.
Moss.
And I'm talking about in terms of the pass catchers. Diggs got nicked up, and of course Beasley playing with that, and he still was good. I mean, it kind of reminded me of when T.O. played in the Super Bowl for the Eagles, but that was coming off the injury, rehabbing, and coming back. Yeah. Cole Beasley didn't have time for any rehab. He missed one game, week 17, and then he was back on the field. We all knew he was banged up, but Dan, I mean, come on. Fracture in the leg? That's crazy.
I did not see that coming. And just the fact, and like I said, and then Josh adds on today the fact of, a lot of guys played injured today this year and never talks about it. And that's 100% true. And that's because that was our mindset going into when we were talking about Patrick Mahomes, was that, like, you're now on week 19 of the season. Nobody's 100%, but it's a whole nother level when you're playing with a fractured fibula. So it was one of those moments where Cole Beasley kind of backs up what everybody has said about him. Brian Dable has called him tough as nails. They've called, Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen have called him a warrior. And then he kind of pretty much went out there and just backed it up as this larger than life figure of this, like, playing with one leg when the team needed him most was a really, I don't know. Again, it goes to show you, and Josh Allen was talked about it, and the fact that that's what guys do, and that's what when you love one another, you put your body on the line for it.
I'm curious as to what rhymes with fibula, so it'll be in his next rap.
I think you just go leg. I think
you just go leg.
Yeah, you just say you played with a partially broken leg.
There's a nice zip to it.
Yeah.
But, look, I do think it impacted the wide receivers. And I think in the game itself, I don't think they were getting the separation they normally do.
Yeah.
But it leads to all the things that are going to come about, like what this team needs to do, right? They're going to be looking for offensive line help. They're going to be looking. We have plenty of time to talk about this. They're going to be looking to change
yourself, Mike.
They're going to be changing the dynamic of the running game. I think they need a little different spark in that running game. And maybe it's a pass catcher in the running game. Somebody who's a little better out of the backfield, a mismatch kind of guy out of the backfield that teams can use. By the way, Naheem from the Colts. I said it again. Hines. He was I think he was a wide receiver in college. They moved him to running back, but he does that a lot, catches a lot of balls. I think they could use that kind of guy. All these things will come up. I want to sum this up by saying the Chiefs were the better team. They deserve to win. Whatever else the Bills might have done, it might have not made a difference in winning the game. I just wanted to see that team on the field, not the team that played on Sunday.
Jenna, one last thing. I think it's something to talk about. The chippiness at the end of that game was something. It was more than just jawing back and forth. Chris Jones threw a punch at John Feliciano, and that wasn't called in the first quarter, which could change the game. And we can talk about bad officiating, because there was bad officiating in the Bucs and Packers game. And the fact that what wasn't a call in week 9, or what was a call in week 9, all of a sudden isn't a call on Championship Sunday. And then not only that, what wasn't a call in the first quarter is now a call with 2 minutes to go. Like, that stuff drives me nuts. It's the same thing with umpires in baseball. If you're a bad umpire, that's fine. Just be a consistently bad umpire. Like, don't call it a high strike one time and then not call it the next one. Like, just be bad all the time. But somebody made a point and said, like, this could be a rivalry, right? We talk about Mahomes and Allen constantly seeing each other. Like, those teams, those guys did not like one another. Like, it was on top of all that. It was Allen flipping the ball and hitting the guy in the face. That. I thought that was awesome. Josh felt really bad about it, said it was weighing on his conscience, and that's not who he is. He needs to be a better leader. But I liked John Feliciano coming in and laying the dude out.
Yeah.
And Jerry Hughes talked about that. Like, if you take 17 to the ground, like, that's what you got to pay for, Jenna.
Yeah.
Yeah. I loved it because I was happy to see the frustration in terms of, I'm glad it had a reaction. Like, I'm glad they just didn't stick their tail between their legs and be like, well, whatever. I'm glad that they had the emotional response to be pissed off, honestly. I was happy to see that. And like Allen wants to be better in that situation, wants to be the leader. but I'm happy to see him have that fight in him, and then to see how chippy it was. But you're right, like these guys don't like each other.
Yeah,
if they played each other twice this year, you're going to see them again next year. So I feel like
that's a
in the regular season, maybe beyond that. But let's be real. Like it's in the AFC, it looks like things are going to roll through Arrowhead.
Yeah.
So if they want to make a run, it's going to be about beating the Chiefs, and it'll be setting up in terms of just the relationship. I was shocked when that punch landed on John Feliciano.
Oh yeah.
Like, because we've seen a lot of people selling fouls this year. Josh in particular might get a SAG award for some of his roughing the passer calls, but you could tell Feliciano was like, what?
Yeah. And the way it happened was after some pushing, shoving, things that would have gotten the attention of the official in the first place. I don't know how they missed that. I don't know how they missed the punch, but that game next year, I mean, obviously lock it in. That's a Sunday night game or I guess it could be a Thursday night game. I mean, it's in Kansas City. It's Bills and Chiefs. That's a primetime, early season, probably primetime game between those two teams. And you're right. They are rivals. They got to do something because the Chiefs are really good and they may very well win a second straight Super Bowl, and they are young and they're not going anywhere. So as good as the Bills are, that team's in front of them. And like I said to you guys the other day, when the Bills made it, and when they finally figured out how to get through the AFC, they beat Marino, they beat Elway, they beat Montana. The best are going to be there.
Yeah,
Mahomes is going to be there. You're going to have to figure out a way to either stop them or outscore them. And it's probably going to be outscore them.
Yeah.
And just finishing up that chippiness, I just want to make one point. I made a baseball reference and all that other stuff, but like that was, to me, the offensive lineman, Feliciano and those guys, and Deion Dawkins, who I thought wanted to throw a punch in that situation, that to me showed a lot more heart in how close this team was. And I know that may be a dumb cliche, but I saw Ryan Miller get run over by a Boston Bruin, and everybody looked at one another like, are you going to do something? Are you going to do something? And I know hockey and football are different, Mike.
No, that's not what I was going to say. I'm with you.
Quarterback.
I wanted a response earlier in that game, and I don't mean dumb.
100%.
I wanted it earlier. They showed that later. It might have.
It was a frustration.
I don't think you'd take a cheap shot at Mahomes or anything like that, but show a little more of that. Get everything going. Wake everybody up right away. And if you give up something, you give up something. A more aggression. I do think this is a smart coaching staff and a smart football team that will learn. But what they're going to learn is it's going forward. It's aggressive. That's how they're going to win, especially against a team as good as Kansas City.
Yeah. Right, Jenna? Because it was funny when the Bucs started this playoff run and they were starting to play better. They had talked about how Tom Brady kind of had to take over. And Bruce Arians even said, like, I'm just letting him coach. Yeah. I'm letting Tom Brady coach. Like that's what it is. Okay, Mike, I get it. It's probably for the media. We know Bruce Arians is probably really calling the plays and all that stuff.
No. I'm saying is Bruce Arians is like, yeah, dude, go ahead and coach. He ain't Belichick.
Yeah.
No, and Brady.
Well, I feel like if it works out, it looks great on him, and if it doesn't, it's all Brady.
He also threw 3 picks in the second half.
Yes.
Should have had an incompletion on 4th down late, and they won the game. So when you win, those things work. If the Bills would have come up with a couple of plays defensively, turned everything around and won, we wouldn't be talking as much about McDermott's lack of aggression. But it was
passivity.
Right. and that's the point, was that even when the Bucs were up, they still gave Brady the chance to throw 3 interceptions. Like, you know what I'm saying? Was that like the Bucs were going to win, or Tom Brady was going to be carried off the field on his shield? Like, that was what I wanted to see. I wanted to see Josh go down scratching and clawing for every yard, and Brian Daboll pulling everything he had out of his, playbook and bag of tricks. And I just didn't see it. And moving forward, exactly like what you said, Mike, the Bills, Sean McDermott, who never talks about a game being a measuring stick, said that's a measuring stick.
Yeah.
They're who we have to beat. We're going to see them again. Trey White said, like, they're not going anywhere anytime soon. And he goes, neither are we. So we got to find a way to get past them. So it was a really cool dynamic. I liked to see that.
It's going to impact everything. And we got plenty to talk about this year, but it's going to impact decision-making on the roster. It's going to impact decision-making in the draft, free agency, how they play. I just saw a report, Dan, that said Bills' plan for 2021 season is to become run heavy. I don't know if that's accurate.
Yeah, very funny.
They think it's the best way to handle the Chiefs.
That's from Adam Scheffler. Twitter handle.
The unverified. Yeah, we'll have plenty more to talk about. We know the Bills 21 season is now over, but we will discuss everything going forward. Sean McDermott will be talking. Brandon Beane will be talking. We'll hear from more players as well. We're going to wrap it up here. I will say, while this is the end of the regular season and we're approaching off-season mode, we really appreciate everyone following along. This has been a lot of fun, and it's kind of turned into, I think, way more than we expected in terms of Buffalo Plus, but we really appreciate it because we love to cover the team and we love to be able to discuss it and get everyone's opinions and questions, especially when they make fun of Mike.
And Dan, great job coming up with the idea to be on YouTube.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it.
Works so well.
All my idea. And Mike, thanks for backing me up with this great plan.
All right. We're going to wrap it up here.
Let's get to 5,000 subscribers. So like and subscribe.
Yeah, there we go.
Subscribe. If you're listening on podcast platforms, be sure to comment as well. Yeah, we really appreciate it. We'll see you as the Bills continue now and move into the off-season portion of the year. For Mike Catalana and Dan Fetes, I am Jenna Cottrell. Thanks for coming by.